This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
Nico Collins is finally back tonight for the Houston Texans, a much-needed jolt for an offense I truly enjoyed watching last year, and it comes at the perfect time as they take on the Dallas Cowboys for tonight on Monday Night Football. Today, we're going to break down that game, outline the impact of Nico's return, my read on the spread in total, some player props I like, a touchdown pick, and much more to get you ready for the Texans at Cowboys on Monday night. Welcome on into Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is JimSannes. I am a managing editor at FanDuel Research, here to break down my thoughts on the Texans at Cowboys, letting you know my top bets and player props and touchdown picks on FanDuel for tonight. We'll dive into all that here in just 1 second, but first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Back with you tomorrow morning. I'll go through all of the Week 12 games on tap. There are no buys this week, so a lot of games to go through there. Going game by game, letting you know my model thoughts on those games, which bets I want to lock in on a Tuesday there, college football Wednesday, NFL on Thursday, both DFS and betting on the YouTube side of things, and player props Friday. To get those shows as they're posted, search for Covering the Spread wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe, and if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating and review as well. Don't forget to subscribe to the new YouTube page as well. Leave us a thumbs up there and enable notifications to get notified as we go live each and every weekday here on this brand new FanDuel football betting YouTube page. The NBA is back, and FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, wants you to catch all the action. And right now, FanDuel is giving everyone 3 months of NBA League Pass. All you have to do to catch every tip-off and buzzer beater is place any $5 bet on the NBA to get 3 months of NBA League Pass courtesy of FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. After a 3-month free trial, the full price of NFL League Pass will be NBA League Pass will be automatically charged monthly. Cancel anytime, no refunds. Terms, restrictions, and embargoes apply. Limit 1 pass per customer. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-79-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit MD Gambling Health Oregon, Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's take a look here at the betting odds for the Texans at the Cowboys right now at FanDuel Sportsbook. Texans favored by 7.5. They're even money to cover the 7.5 right now. So effectively a 7-point game here. Total in this game is 41.5. And the big key is Nico Collins back in this game for the Texans. I think that's been baked in the betting market the entire time. So you're not going to be able to sneak one past FanDuel Sportsbook here with Nico being back. I've got this spread at 6.5 with Nico being in there. So not going to dive into the spread in this game. I do see some value in the total, though, and I do think that the over is the way I want to go there. The total is at 41.5 right now, FanDuel Sportsbook. Over is -110. I've got this total at 43.62 points, in large part because we get Stroud plus Nico Collins back together. If you want to get an over, even on a small number like 41.5, you do want chunk plays. You want those long touchdowns to move the ball efficiently and create kind of this back and forth potential dynamic. And we're a lot more likely to get that when we've got Nico Collins out there versus when Stroud has to throw things to Dalton Schultz, John Mechie, and guys like that. So I think that's a pretty big lift for this total here, especially when you consider the issues this Dallas defense had, even with Micah Parsons returning for them last week. Now you could say, I don't know if I want to go with the full game total, given how bad Cooper Rush looked last week. The option you'd have would be to go with the Texans team total. That currently is 24.5. Over is -106. Personally, I much prefer to go with the full game over because I expect at least something out of Rush, given that he has shown competency in the not so distant past. Now, granted, it was with a better supporting cast than what he has right now. And I kind of do want that safety, especially given that I need an over on a key number of 24 for the Texans to get this to this team total over. So You could look at the team total for the Texans over 24.5 minus 106. I personally much prefer the game over 41.5 at minus 110 as my preferred route to buying into what my model does think should be a somewhat okay scoring environment here. But I think the other takeaway from liking the over in this game is that it allows me to look at prop markets and be okay with positive props. Because when I like an under, it's hard to be super enticed by a lot of yardage overs, a lot of touchdown props, because I know that it's kind of being the total is baked into those numbers. So if I like the over, I feel more okay targeting positive props in a game. That's what we get here. That does include touchdown props. Now, looking at the actual touchdown scores at FanDuel Sportsbook, Joe Mixon is minus 185, Nico Collins plus 125, Tank Dell plus 190. I'm not going to be able to get to any of those numbers because I think they're all pretty fair, even when I know that like those guys do have legitimately good roles. The one touchdown bet I really do like here is going to be Dalton Schultz. Schultz is plus 350 at FanDuel Sportsbook to score for tonight. I think that's actually a pretty good number. Now, I'm not going at yardage props for Dalton Schultz because we add Nico Collins back in. Even at 29.5, I can't get there with Schultz. But what we get here is a better scoring environment for the Texans, and that cascades down to everybody on this team. It makes everybody more attractive in touchdown markets with Nico Collins being back. There's still no Stephon Diggs, so at least there's some clear way for Schultz to get targets. Now, this year, Schultz has only 2 red zone targets the entire year. Frankly, that feels a little bit fluky for a tight end. Plus, it is a Dalton Schultz revenge game, and that is obviously the most important factor. Disregard game environment, disregard usage. It's all about the revenge game here for Dalton Schultz. I think we got the green light here with Schultz to go towards the touchdown market, given that Texans should put up some points. He is going to be on the field a bunch and does earn at least some targets, even with Nico Collins out there. So if you give me one touchdown prop for tonight, it's going to be Dalton Schultz, plus 350 at FanDuel Sportsbook, looking for him to find the paint here against his former team. As far as other props go, couldn't get to any other touchdown props that I like for tonight. I did want to look at CJ Stroud's rushing prop because my thought process was, okay, Nico Collins is back. The need for Stroud to create is going to decrease because he should be able to do more inside the pocket and feel pretty good about that. But the number's low. It's 8.5. And Stroud's actually exceeded 8.5 rushing yards in 6 out of 10 games so far this year. So I did want to take the under on Stroud's rushing, but with it being at 8.5, I wound up passing on that instead. I'm not looking at the over necessarily because I don't think he wants to run necessarily, but couldn't quite get to the under, which I thought might be where I'd be looking at for today. Instead, I want to go towards his backfield mate, and that is Joe Mixon. Mixon's baseline prop is very high. It is at 86.5, 87.5 now actually at FanDuel Sportsbook, and I understand why it's there. I don't mind that number, but I think that the juice is more worth the squeeze in Mixon's alt rushing prop. Right now, FanDuel Sportsbook, he is plus 144 to get you 100 yards in this game. And Mixon has actually done that in every full game he has played this year, except for one. Now, that one was last week, so that's definitely a downside, but much better matchup here for Mixon taking on the Dallas Cowboys. They actually ranked dead last against the rush, according to NumberFire's schedule-adjusted metrics. They got shredded by Saquon Barkley last week, even with Micah Parsons being back in there. Parsons is a guy who impacts the pass more so than he impacts the rush, so I still expect them to really struggle to stop the rush, even with Parsons being back in the equation. Mixon should get volume. Again, my model does have the Texans pretty heavily favored here, which means they should have a lead and be able to ice things out late. This is an important game for the Texans because they're trying to jockey for playoff positioning and stuff like that. So I think there's a lot to like here with Joe Mixon. Again, plus 144 to get 100 plus yards, something he has done consistently so far this year. I don't mind that prop at all. So going towards Joe Mixon, 100 plus yards, plus 144 at FanDuel Sportsbook for tonight. On the Cowboys side of things, I want to buy in Rico Dowdle because you look back to last week. Ezekiel Elliott is back. He's finally back in the lineup after that one-game suspension, and Zeke fumbles near the goal line. Now, Zeke did get the ball again on the very next offensive play, so clearly they didn't bench him in game, but they've had a full week now to game plan around Dowdle being the top guy. And Mike McCarthy did say that they view Rico Dowdle as being their top back, and they want to get him more involved. That does not mean I will go towards Dowdle's rushing prop. That is 53.5 at FanDuel Sportsbook. That is not a lower number by any means, nor is his rushing plus receiving mark, which is 78.5. Over for him is minus 113 there. Both those numbers are pretty high. And I don't want to depend on this Cowboys offense moving the football here. I could just kind of want to bet on the volume. Now, I could do that via the rush attempts, but even that's 13.5, and that does kind of require them to keep this game close. Instead, I think the best way to buy into Dowdle, where I can buy into his role without buying into the Cowboys offense being hyper efficient here, would be in Dowdle's alternate reception market. Receptions, not reception yards. If you go there at FanDuel Sportsbook right now, Dowdle is currently plus 118 to get 4+ receptions. This is a number he has gotten to in 2 of his past 3 games. I'm looking more at that more recent sample of Dowdle because it does seem like he's been gaining a larger foothold in this backfield and could get an even bigger foothold in this one. I also like this number for Dowdle because it allows us to benefit from Cooper rush dump-offs. Like if Rush gets rushed by this Texans pass rush, which has been very good so far this year, dump it off to Dowdle, and then Dowdle can get 2 yards, but who cares? We're just looking for him to catch the football, and they're generally going to be pretty high percentage passes for a running back. We don't need him to do anything with it. I don't want to bet on yardage here with Dowdle and with this Cowboys team. Again, we can benefit from a dump off on 3rd and long. So plus 118 on Dowdle to get us 4+ receptions. I think that's a pretty good number based on an assumption that his role does increase based on what Mike McCarthy has said. It's actually now out to plus 120 at FanDuel Sportsbook as well. So we're betting on the role he's had so far expanding a bit and not putting ourselves up against the wall. We're forced to lean on the Cowboys to move the football and be efficient in this game. So the one Cowboys prop I do like is Rico Dowdle, 4+ receptions, plus 120 at FanDuel Sportsbook. Let's finish up here with our top same game parlay for tonight's game. It's going to lean on that Texan stuff we discussed earlier on, where I think that this offense will be more efficient with Nico Collins being back in the mix. That's going to lead to they're moving the football, them putting up some points and benefiting us and getting a positive script. So going back to the 3 props we discussed earlier on with the Texans side of things, that does include the game over 41.5. We're going to lump in the Dalton Schultz touchdown, now down to plus 340 at FanDuel Sportsbook. It was plus 370 this morning. So someone's buying into Dalton Schultz as we speak. And then we'll also go with the Joe Mixon rushing prop. I still want to go with the all market here. If you want to go with the 87.5 baseline, I don't blame you. But again, I think that the alt market is the better way to attack Joe Mixon here. Plus 142 now at FanDuel Sportsbook to get us 100+ yards. So if you go with the Mixon, 100+ rushing yards, Dalton Schultz anytime touchdown, and over 41.5 points in this game, that's plus 1253 at FanDuel Sportsbook for that same game parlay. All of these do mesh pretty well, where they're not going to cancel each other out, and all of these guys benefit and these markets benefit with Nico Collins being back in the fold to make this Texans offense more efficient and more explosive. We're not buying into Collins specifically, but buying into guys who benefit from his presence on the field. So again, over 41.5, Dalton Schultz anytime touchdown, Joe Mixon 100+ yards. That is plus 1253 at FanDuel Sportsbook for tonight. That's all that we have here for today on covering the spread. Should be a pretty fun game for tonight here between the Texans and the Cowboys. Just excited to watch Nico Collins back there. I don't really care about the Cowboys side of things too much. Just want to see Nico back in our lives once again. Do not forget to subscribe both on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, but also on YouTube to get notified as we go live each and every weekday. Tomorrow, I'm going to go game by game, breaking down my model's thoughts on each game across Week 12, which bets I want to lock in now, which ones I'm monitoring for later on. That'll be up on YouTube, 10 a.m. Eastern, live there to watch, and up on the Covering the Spread podcast feed after the fact. Want to give a big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin, as always. If you got any questions for me, I am on X at JimSannes, also on Blue Sky at JimSannes as well. If you're venturing over there, you can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Want to thank you all for tuning in for today. Good luck to you with your bets on Monday Night Football. Enjoy watching Nico Collins back in our lives. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow to go game by game, breaking down best bets from me across Week 12. This has been Covering the Spread, a FanDuel Research podcast.